to A League of Legislation, the quiz that takes a look at the laws that influence your job as a health and social care worker. I'm Jim Hargreaves, and this week on the red side we have Chris from the PAC team and Paul from Bishop's Waltham House.
Hello.
Hi. On the blue side we have Jem and Louise, also from the PAC team.
Hello.
So, could you please welcome our first special guest, Jim Mason, Hampshire County Council's Workforce Development Advisor for Mental Capacity.
I'm going to tell you about the 5 statutory principles of the Mental Capacity Act, and I'm going to give you an easy way to remember them just on your hand. So there's 5 statutory principles. They are statutory, which means they're law. So these are 5 laws on your fingers for how we help people make decisions. Principle number 1. Here on your thumb, think of thumbs up to capacity. From the age 16, people have the right to make their own choices and decisions. So just remember that thumb saying thumbs up to capacity. People get to make their own choices and decisions in life, particularly around their health and social care. Principle number 2, think of a wagging finger. This wagging finger is saying, have you done what you could do as a professional to support this person to make their own decision? That means thinking about things like the time of day they're being asked to make a decision, where they're being asked to make a decision. Is it noisy? Have you got rid of the distractions? What about the information they need to make the decision? Have you presented it in a way they can understand? Have you paid attention to their communication needs and you're communicating in a way that they can understand? Those are all principle number 2 things, and that's the wagging finger saying, have you done those things? Because principle number 2 says you can't treat somebody as unable to make a decision for themselves unless you've done what you can reasonably do to support them making that decision. Principle number 3, it's on the middle finger. That's the sort of a rude gesture that I'd like you to think of. Just remember that as professionals give advice to people, maybe a GP will give me advice about how to keep myself healthy and safe, to eat well and not drink too much. Sometimes I'll take decisions where I choose not to follow that advice and I sort of stick my finger up to the professional's advice. Principle number 3 says you can't treat somebody as unable to make a decision just because they make a decision that's unwise or eccentric. So those are the first 3 principles, all designed to promote decision making and to encourage us to support people to make their own decisions. Think of that. Principle number 1, from 16, it's an assumption of capacity. The person can make their own choices and decisions. Principle number 2, you do what you can to support decision making. And principle number 3, you may get a decision out the other side that you don't like, but that doesn't mean that the person lacks capacity. Principle 4 and Principle 5 are slightly different because they sit the other side of an assessment of capacity. Because if in doing those first 3 you're really concerned that somebody is not able to make this decision at this particular time, then you may need to make it for them. And in which case Principle number 4 kicks in. That's the best interest principle, and it just says that you need to think what is interesting to this person, what matters to them, what's important to them, and how can I best meet that? So that's the best interest finger. Sometimes you wear a ring on it, which will remind you there are often other people in the person's life who might know them better. Somebody they were married to, somebody they're living with, a friend who will know them a little better than you do and might be able to give you a bit of a clue as to what would be in their best interests. And then principle number 5, that's on the little finger, right at the end. Even if we're in a situation where we make a decision on behalf of somebody who can't make it for themselves, we do it in the way that is least restrictive of their rights and freedoms. That's what the Act says that we must do. So think of a little finger approach, not a fist where professionals wade in with a fist, but actually a little finger approach that says, what can I do that's going to least interfere with this person's way of doing life? What's going to cause them the least pain, distress, discomfort, impact on their dignity? So that's the 5 statutory principles on your hand. Assume capacity. Do what you can, reasonable support to somebody to make their own decision. Remember, they may make a decision you don't like. That doesn't mean they lack capacity. But if they do lack the ability to make this decision, a best interest decision will be made after you've found out what's important to them. And then finally, the way you go about carrying out that decision needs to be the way that causes least disturbance, that little finger approach. And that's it, MCA on 5 fingers.
Thank you, Jem, and I hope you were all listening closely as we'll be asking some questions about it in the e-learning module. Right, now on to the next round, the guest list. This week we hear from Jo Smith, who is from Hampshire County Council's Health and Safety team.
The Health and Safety at Work Act of 1974 is a key piece of legislation relating to health and safety. Adult Services' responsibility to its staff is to ensure the health, safety and welfare of people at work, to protect others from risks arising from the activities of people at work, to control the use and storage of dangerous substances, to control the emission into the atmosphere of noxious or offensive substances. Your responsibilities are: take reasonable care for your own safety and others' safety, cooperate with your employer, use equipment correctly, do not misuse or interfere with anything provided for your safety, report any concerns. Health and safety seems to get blamed for everything these days, and I get to hear some crazy myths in my time. The craziest being...
All right, let's hold it there for a moment. Teams, tell me, what do you think is the craziest myth Joe has ever heard? Red team.
I've heard that toothpicks could be used, are going to be banned and could be used as a dangerous weapon.
Okay, I've heard that daffodils are going to be banned in the gardens, and apparently the little sticks that poke up are going to be a tripping hazard.
Right. So what do you think of those two?
I don't know, let's go for toothpicks.
Yeah?
Yeah, toothpicks. We'll go for toothpicks.
OK, thanks for that, Chris. Over to the blue team. Jem, any ideas?
Well, I've heard that you can't put blue tack on glass because it causes some kind of chemical reaction and will explode.
And the craziest one I've heard is that you can't put hanging baskets up in case people bang their heads on them. So what, Jem?
Blue tack?
Yeah, should we go for blue tack?
Yeah, OK, blue tack.
Blue tack, right. OK, we've got your answers. Let's hear Joe's craziest myth.
When I was visiting care home, an individual said to me that only a qualified person is allowed to put up Christmas decorations in any of our homes. Now I want everyone watching this video to go and find out who is the health and safety representative in your service.
Unfortunately, neither team came up with the right answer for that one, so no points for either of you. But a big thank you to Joe Smith for providing us with that fascinating insight into the world of health and safety. Right, last but not least, I'd like to introduce Chris Goodwin, a para-triathlon blind world champion working for Hampshire County Council, and this is what he does best. Yeah, Chris, great to meet you. What inspires you to compete in para-triathlons?
Hi, Jim. Triathlons and para-triathlons, I really enjoy them. They're an opportunity for me to challenge myself and to see if I can become the best para-triathlete I can, the best athlete I can. And fortunately, I seem to be fairly good at the sport, and it gives me the chance to compete and race against some of the best other para-triathletes in the world.
What's your proudest moment?
Oh, that's quite easy. Last year at Hyde Park at the World Championships, I came through the finishing line first. I broke through the tape, and as I raised my arms as I went through the tape, and a funny wave of emotion passed through me. It's definitely my proudest moment.
And what do you think is the hardest part of doing a para-triathlon?
Oh, there are many hard bits to doing a triathlon and a para-triathlon as well. But one of the most difficult bits is when you come out of the water, you can be a little bit dizzy from being horizontal. Now you've got to stand up and run. And then when you've got to get to the bike, you've got to take your wetsuit off as quickly as you can so that you lose as little time in this transition from swimming to bike.
Many thanks, Chris. Well, earlier in the week, we went to the Hampshire County Council offices and posed our two team captains that very challenge to see if they could come close to doing what Chris does on a regular basis. So teams, you've got to answer as many questions as possible in the time it took each opposing captain to do the changeover. So red team, we're going with you first. Question 1, which act keeps us free from torture and degrading treatment?
Human Rights Act.
Yeah.
Human Rights Act.
Question 2, which piece of legislation governs us through inspection of services?
Health and Social Care Act.
Yeah.
Health and Social Care Act.
OK, for a bonus point, what is the name of the regulatory body that comes in to inspect our services?
I know this one. CQC, the Care Quality Commission.
Right, so which act states that any information recorded must be accurate, relevant, up to date, and and processed with a lawful purpose.
Data Protection
Yeah,
Act.
Data Protection Act.
Question 4, under the Data Protection Act, can you share information?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Question 5, what is the vision of putting people first?
That's giving choice and control to service users.
Yeah.
So giving choice and control to service users.
Okay, time's up there. Well done, red team. You've scored 6 points. Let's see if the blue team, you can do any better. So, question 1 for 2 points. Who follows the safeguarding policy?
Well, that'd be SHIP. So that's Southampton, Hampshire, Isle of Wight and Portsmouth councils.
Yeah, and don't forget the fire, police and health services.
Okay, question 2. Under the safeguarding policy, what are the 3 key things that could highlight a person at risk?
Oh, okay, so they have to be over 18.
And have a physical and mental impairment.
Yep. And they need to be in care or need...
unable to protect themselves from harm.
Question 3. What responsibilities do you have under the safeguarding policy?
Oh, safeguarding is everybody's business.
Yeah, we all have a duty to report any concerns.
Question 4. What is the fundamental principle of valuing people now?
People with
Learning disabilities. They have the same rights as everybody else.
Question 5. Who is protected by the Equalities Act 2010?
So that's everybody in Britain?
Yeah. So that would include age,
Gender,
yep, disabilities,
race.
and religion.
Okay, stop you there. Well done, blue team. You've also scored 6 points. And on that note of equality, it seems that both teams have drawn this week, so it's thanks from me and the teams, and thank you for watching.